Hello and welcome to this new episode of Learning with Leaders. Today, my guest is Juliane Hefel from Henkel, North America. I had the pleasure and the honor to work with her in Düsseldorf, and now she will be talking about her engagement, which is very much supported by Henkel in the local Detroit community, working with young people there, and also when she is hiring, she's especially paying attention to the right attitude and, of course, also to the skill set, but especially to the right attitude. I wish you a lot of fun listening to Juliane here today. Have a nice one. Bye bye.
Hello, Juliane. Welcome to Learning with Leaders today.
Hi, Marco. Thanks for having me. It's
Of
a pleasure
course.
to be here.
Thank you very much. What an amazing picture. Did you read all those books?
Of course.
Of
That's
course.
what I do in my spare time.
Okay. Excellent. So, where are you currently? In the
So
US,
I'm
right?
based in my
Mhm.
home office, out of Detroit, where I'm working for Henkel now since mid of 2017 in the freezing Michigan.
Oh, wow. I just to introduce you to the audience, you are from Austria, right?
Correct.
I noticed that you studied first languages in 97, right? Spanish and
Mhm.
English, and then you started in 99 parallel a master in administration and management, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So what I mean, why? Why? I mean, first language and then management. How did that come?
Great question. I think that goes a little bit is a red thread throughout my career as well. I would definitely say that everything I've done is not necessarily a linear path, but it's much more. And I heard recently somebody calling it a jungle gym, if you want to describe it like that. I was driven a lot by my interests and my curiosity. I love change. I love learning new things, and I loved languages, which is what brought me into studying languages based on also the high school that I went to, where I had Spanish, French, Latin, as well as English. And realizing during university then that's maybe then not for me for the rest of my life. I was drawn into business as well. So that's how the combination came about. Yeah.
But you still finished the language master, right?
Correct. Yeah. That's my major, and my minor is in business administration. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so quite resilient already in younger years.
Yeah.
So, to connect with, to make it easy for me as well, I will try to, let's say, also by introducing you a little bit further. You are a woman in automotive and in a leadership position. So I can imagine with, not amazingly lot of fantasy that there are not a lot of women in this position. So was that planned from the beginning, or were you determined, or did they come along your career that you would land there?
So if you would ask me now, if I would have known back then that I will ever end up in automotive, I would have said clearly not. Yeah. So I would not say that it was planned in that sense, but what was part of my growth on a personal as well as professional side was always the drive to embrace opportunities when they come up. Yeah. After university, based on my studies, my first job was actually working as a translator, to then realize after a year that's maybe not for me for the rest of my life, because there's limited creativity about language when 90% of the things you need to do are patents to be translated, technical, legal, or economic texts. And I ended up then in my first role in procurement in a catering company, and that was on the one hand, I think I was at the right point in time, taking the right decision to actually open up a career progression for me. From there, then I was looking for something more international, and Henkel was looking for people at that point in time in Düsseldorf. So I was invited to an assessment center 1.5 days, and was lucky to be one of the two that got offered a job. So that's what brought me to Düsseldorf, and joined Henkel in 2006. And because of the way the company works and the company embraces and supports people who want to see different things, who want to learn different things, who want to create an impact, and are open for new opportunities. I'm still here. I have never thought that I'm going to stay with the company for 15 years, and I haven't regretted a single day, but enjoyed every single day. And so that's then how my career took off. I was in procurement first, doing many different roles there, from raw material procurement to marketing procurement. I was a beauty care key account, and then had the opportunity to move to Shanghai for 3 years, where I was leading the indirect materials and services purchasing team, which was a fascinating experience. I would always do it again. And I came back then to Düsseldorf in 2015 and wanted to move closer to where we earn the money, to understand really the business side of things. And that's what then opened up doors into moving into the adhesive world, where I joined the automotive division and did marketing and sales excellence at the first step. And then 2.5 years later, the opportunity came to move to Detroit. And I said, sure, no doubt, I'm going to do that. And here I am now running a business and have really found my passion. I think it's an exciting world to be in. It's a world that's being disrupted heavily at this point in time, and the most exciting time of to be actually in automotive right now.
So Juliane, I mean, this illustrates probably very nicely your attitude, your approach to things, because I mean, honestly, Detroit does not really sound very sexy, if I may, from the outside, right? And also, I mean, to say, although I have a lot of exciting customers in the automotive industry, some people would also say that it's probably not the right moment to be in the automotive industry due to all the changes, you know, with E and stuff. So how does it come that you think exactly the opposite?
Mm-hmm. Because I think it resonates with my personality. So I love challenges and I love seeing change and being part and having the ability to impact that change that has a huge impact on a global level. If you talk about CO2 emissions now, for example, right, with automotive being for sure at the forefront here, and everything the industry is doing to become more sustainable, I think is super fascinating for me. Is it a tough industry? Yes. Do you learn to be resilient? Yes, absolutely. And at the same time, it's a very rewarding industry, you know.
I mean, with all due respect, Henkel does almost have content in almost every car on the road, right? I mean, which is not seen. That is also the fascinating thing. And I was thinking exactly of that when you said, you know, purchasing for indirect materials. I mean, that does not sound very exciting neither. But I mean, having been in that industry as well, I mean, there are so many exciting things to learn, right?
Right, yeah. And if you say indirect material, the exciting thing is about the vast thing, the vast majority of baskets that go into that. You talk about capital expenditures, you talk about business travel, you talk about IT equipment, you talk about consulting services, you talk about training. So there's just a diversity of things that you have to deal with, and the industries that you dive into is super exciting, very fascinating.
So you already mentioned that you are a very curious person. So do you remember any coaching or mentoring experience during your career which really impacted your, you know, your forthcoming, your career steps?
I think it's an experience very early in my life that I actually learned from my mom, and it's trust your gut feeling. And I think that's what brought me then to embrace opportunities, also to say, yes, I moved to Shanghai, although I have never been there. Yes, I moved to Detroit, although I've never been there. Yeah. That the first reaction you have internally is in many cases giving you a good indication whether that's a right step for you or whether it's something you should maybe reconsider. And that's something I think that accompanied me along my career progression.
So you worked already in Europe, obviously, in Düsseldorf. You worked in Asia. You're now working in the US. So did that have an impact on your personal leading style or coaching style? And if yes, where do you see that impact?
I think a huge impact there, because if you move into a new culture, in particular if it's such a different culture like the Chinese was for me, you first have to learn and you have to listen and try to understand. And I think that's an important characteristic and approach to take along when you start leading teams. Try to leave your biases aside and preconceived notions, and really try to understand what's driving people, what's motivating them, why are they where they are, and where do they want to go. Yeah, that has a lot to do with listening and really understanding and being open. Yeah.
Talking about open, I know that you are also very engaged in your, I don't know, can we call it spare time? And so you have an open heart, or you say that an open heart and open mind is very important as well, not only in your environment, but especially in a city like Detroit. So you spend quite some time with the employee resource group. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, with pleasure. So I have the great opportunity now since a year roughly to be the executive sponsor of one of our employee resource groups, the African American Alliance of Metro Detroit. So employee resource groups, for those who are not so familiar, are employee-driven teams that come together based on a common interest, a common characteristic, to on the one hand create a platform within the company for exchange and a network for people to feel at home, and at the same time also they drive a lot of community engagement, so it's a very, very important pillar of our culture as a company here. And Detroit, with downtown Detroit being 70 to 80% Black population, being close to that part of the population that's still underrepresented in many things that we do and how society is working here, yeah, was for me a very important endeavor. I moved to Detroit downtown when I came to the US, and similar to the reaction you had before, many people said, "Are you sure you want to go there? It's dangerous and you cannot live there," etc. And I said, "No, I want to understand. Yeah, I want to learn what the city is about and what we as a company also can do to help taking the city along on our success journey." And that then drove a lot of community engagement. And I'm very excited now with my team on the employee resource group that we are engaging with, for example, Math Corp, which is a local NGO that was founded in Detroit, trying to give access to education, middle school education, to kids out of underrepresented families that don't necessarily have access to education. And in the end, then enable them to go to high school. So that's the majority of what they're trying to achieve with the program. Yeah? And we are actively engaged there. Another one is the United Negro College Fund. Also, they're trying to give access to higher school education and enabling kids that don't come out of privileged families, yeah, to go to university and to create a career that's different maybe from what their parents were able to do. Yeah. And I think a lot of social progress has to do with access to education, and we have a role to play as a company in the communities we're operating in. So I think that's something that's driving me, and that's something also what Henkel stands for, and I'm very proud of.
Do the people who are involved on both sides of this program, so on the receiving and on the giving side, are they truly embracing it? And how do you feel it, that it's really important to them?
I would say definitely embracing it, yeah, because many of them had experiences out of their own past, yeah, that was not so positive, and where they didn't have opportunities that they would have loved to. So there's a big willingness also from our employees to contribute, and many of us understand, if you then hear the stories of kids, that we are in a very privileged situation, and that's a way on how we can give back and make everybody participate in the privileges that some of us maybe have and others don't. Yeah. So we're just starting now, which is very exciting. Also, hopefully sometime this summer, a mentoring exchange with that program. Yeah. So where we actually open up the opportunity to employees to be engaged and contribute and become a mentor of a younger kid, yeah, that is still trying to find its way in the world. Yeah.
So do you have then a sort of an assessment discussion with that person, with that volunteer? Because I can imagine that, I mean, it sounds very exciting and challenging to do it. On the other hand, you also need to be sure that you have the right people in that team, right?
Correct, yeah. So on the one hand, we of course don't force anybody, but it's really based on being volunteering, yeah, and raising your hand, want to contribute, and then obviously it's very clear to be clear about roles and responsibilities, yeah, to help also along that process and make it meaningful for all sides, yeah, and impactful.
I mean, of course, without giving any names away, but can you share a story or something which really impacted you and where you saw really the good things you could do with that group? Any concrete?
So I was very grateful when I started as the executive sponsor, that the team sat down with me and we had an open conversation and a difficult conversation. And they shared with me experiences out of their own past, how they grew up, and to see how prevalent racism still is in this society, yeah, was mind-blowing for me. And this opened my eyes to, we really got to step up here and do something different. Yeah.
So is it an advantage that you are a white woman in that position?
So I would say it's an advantage maybe that I am a woman. In general, I mean, there is, like you said, there is not a lot in automotive, and we bring different strengths to the table than men bring, right? And I think it's about finding the right balance, and that's going to really create a lot of value here. So I guess the sponsor before was a man, and I think he was equally successful, right? Just with very different ways of looking at things, yeah, and very different things. Obviously, we are trying to do differently and impact on.
So obviously, purpose in general, not only in this role, is very important for you. So when thinking of the main audience for this podcast, the young professionals, younger people, how important for a leader like you is it to really sense passion and purpose in a young person?
It's key. For me, I think hiring fresh graduates or young professionals has a lot to do with hiring for the right mindset and hiring for the right attitude. You can learn how to do certain things, right? But what you bring to the table as a person, and your mindset and your spirit behind is for me fundamentally important, because that drives also how you then go about things and what most probably you will see from that person on how they show up in the job. Yeah. So I hire really for mindset, yeah, and for spirit and the curiosity behind. Yeah.
Now, spontaneously, I come up with a question which just crossed my mind. So when you're coming into this employee resource group, so, I mean, you are a very experienced leader. You have seen a lot of different roles. Procurement and sales and conceptual strategy. So when you then come into a new arena like this employee resource group, how do you achieve really to be in a more, let's say, humble? I mean, I don't say that you're normally not humble, but in a more humble position where you still have so many things to learn, where you are a novice. What does it make with you?
For me, it's a very rewarding experience because I'm learning. Yeah, and I have an opportunity to dive into topics I would have never thought of. Yeah, so it's a very humbling experience. Also, I'm there to support, right, and whatever they need from me, I'm willing and more than happy to do. So I don't see myself as dictating where we want to go with this group. Not at all, right? This is not my role, but my role is to support trying to get funds, with removing obstacles, maybe bringing in some ideas that I came across as well. Yeah. And really, it's the team driving it, what we want to get out of this and where we want to go from here. Yeah. And that's for me an exciting learning experience.
So, I mean, you let your gut feeling lead you in some instances. However, I mean, I think there's a fine balance still with, you know, KPIs, analysis, which in Henkel I know is very important as well. So I think it's pretty exciting to have both sides, right? The analytical, but also the emotional to drive things.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I think I learned from the different steps in my career progression, right? All of them in the end add up to what I can bring to the table. And I wouldn't want to miss any of the steps that I have done. Yeah, they were definitely non-linear. I mean, in between my studies, before I started at university, I actually did also a degree in carpentry and interior design. So something totally different. Yeah. But it added to my experience and what I can bring to the table and maybe the way I look at certain things. Yeah. So I definitely encourage people to embrace opportunities when they show up and go for it. Yeah, trust in yourself and dare to be bold. It's going to be rewarding.
Excellent. So I think that is a very nice closing word, dare to be bold. You also then have to have, of course, the company culture to allow you to be bold, right? I mean, not in the first instance when you are bold and then you somehow fail, but it's important to stand up then, right?
Yeah. I mean, we are operating in times that are unprecedented, right? The amount and level of disruption that we are seeing is unforeseen. So there is no one out there who has seen what we are experiencing right now. So it requires people to step up and contribute and share their perspective on how we could navigate through crisis and the turmoils that we are experiencing right now. So I think, yeah, definitely that's something we're driving a lot at Henkel, because we need the creativity of everybody, all our 50,000 employees, to get us into a successful future.
Thank you very much for your time today, Juliane. I wish you again that in the future you continue to take bold and rewarding decisions. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much, Paco. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.